So within the source code that I'm providing throughout the course, I've got links up here at the top to CodePen.io repositories. So if you go to the CodePen.io and if you don't see anything happening, you just see the JavaScript in there, just remember that to push console, and this is going to actually give you all of that information here, allowing it to pop up within the console. So when you're working with all of these values, it's all contained within the console, and that's what we're outputting as well when we're looking at the course. So now I wanted to talk about different operators that we can use to do comparisons, and this is going to lead into conditions. So what conditions are is they're actually statements to check if a condition is true or false. So they're written out in, I'm going to remove out quite a lot of this stuff here because we don't really need a lot of this information. So over here I'm going to do a really simple condition. So if app equals 2, then I want to output something to the console log. And close that up. Actually, that semicolon should be inside of there, so close that up. So basically it says if app, the value of app, is equal to 2, and if this is true, then it's going to do this. So I can go out and refresh this, and it says it's 2. If I change the value to 3, go back out, this condition is no longer true and nothing shows up. So we have the option for conditional statements to add even more logic into there. So we can do something like else. So if it's not true, then not 2, because 2 is the value that we're actually checking for. Go back out and we see that it's not 2. Now there's a few things to keep in mind when you are doing these conditional statements, and it comes to when we talk about operators, comparison operators. So the two equal signs is simply equal to. We have the one equal sign here that sets the value, 2 does a check to see if it's equal to, but it's actually not checking to see if the type is that same type. So if I have something like app equals to, and if you remember from what we learned earlier, that when we have quotes around it, it doesn't stay as an integer, it turns into a string. But over here I'm checking to see if app is equal to 2 of a value of 2. So does this mean that we're able to read the numeric value that's contained within that string? And if it actually equals 2, then we go through and we do this comparison. So it should equal 2, and what do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to be able to check even though the types are different? And if you said yes, it's true that even though the types are different, when we have the two equal signs, it's actually going to return back true, and it did. So this is where best format is usually to use 3 equal signs, and this is an absolute equivalent. So that means that this also includes the type. So this type is a string, this one is an integer. So now when I refresh it, it's no longer going to be true. So keeping that in mind, there's a bunch of other ones as well. So we can do something like not equal to, and this is going to take a look at the type as well. So I'm going to switch this back to something like 5, and now we can do a greater than. We also have less than. We have greater than or equal to, and we've got a whole bunch of these conditions that we can set, all these different operators. So it is greater than or equal to, so we can add that in. Now additional to that, we can run several additional checks in there as well. So we can add in these logical operators to make sure that if app is greater than or equal to 2, then it's true, but we also want to make a check to see if f is equal to 14. and I'm going to change this to true, and I'm going to change this to false. So that makes more sense when we see the output there. So now both of these conditions need to be true in order for true to be shown. So they are both true, and if I was to change this to 18 or something like that, it's no longer going to show up true, it's going to show up false. So what we can do here is we've got some other choices. So we've got an and, we've got an or. So if either one of these is true, then it's going to show up as true, because at least one of them is true. So there's a bunch of different options here with the logical operators and the different comparisons that we can do. So getting back and switching back into the conditions, so this is our typical condition where we're checking to see if this condition is met. If it's not met, then we continue on. We don't show this part. If it is met, then we do show that part. We can also add in additional checks, so we can do something like else if g equals 25. Then we do that, and we can just leave it. We don't need to add an additional else, or we can add an additional else if we wanted. If we so choose to, we could have another else here and show something if none of those conditions are met. Nothing. And yes, it does get fairly complex with the logic. So that's why it's always good to practice this out and really think it through how you want to present the logic of the application that you're presenting or the content that you're looking at in order to make the proper checks and make sure that the results come out the way as planned. So in the next lesson, we're going to be talking about loops. So loops are another one of those integral parts of JavaScript applications, where it allows you to, again, save time. And a lot of these things, it's just a matter of saving time, creating these dynamic functionalities within JavaScript, and loops are another one of those that allow you to save time. So we're going to be going over that in the upcoming lesson.